Finished college at North Carolina State, I was drafted into the U.S. Army. And I was inducted on Valentine's Day 1962. So my wife was penalized for about 45 years because I didn't celebrate Valentine's Day, since that was my day of enlistment. And we got by. But I was inducted and got on the bus in Halifax and went to Raleigh and was examined and put on the train for Fort Jackson, South Carolina, processing. And then spent about a week there. Then went to Fort Gordon, Georgia for basic training. Pulled 8 weeks there. Then had 2 weeks of leave, and then went back to Fort Jackson for advanced training, and then was sent to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Now spell it. I bet you can't. It's right next, the front gate is Sierra Vista. You've heard of that, I'm sure. But anyway, this is where Coach East was captured, and 20 miles from Tombstone, right out in the middle of the mountains. But I worked in personnel there for the almost 2 years and got out. I never went overseas. I was very fortunate. We were a training school, and I processed a number of men that did go to Vietnam. They went overseas. But I was fortunate, and most of the ones in my outfit were fortunate. We weren't sent overseas. I was in during the Bay of Pigs, and when the invasion or the thing with Castro and Mr. Kennedy had their confrontation, and I got out of the service on the 29th of November 1963, a week after Mr. Kennedy, President Kennedy was assassinated. So that's basically my military service. I was fortunate enough to be promoted several times. I went in as a private, slick sleeve private, E1, and was able to get out. And when I got out, I was a specialist 5, E5. Very fortunate. Well, I made an acquisition back in '63 that I had for a little over 50 years. And I got married. Married a young lady from Marana, Arizona, Judy Manning. Judy Staten at the time, and then became Manning. And we were together over 50 years. And so, yes, that's a more memorable acquisition that I made. Sure is. I did not, because I got out before we were really sending men as units to Vietnam. It was about early '64 when the first units went in. And we had been sending individuals, TDY, temporary duty, 90 days, to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, but it was secret. Even though I worked in personnel, we had no earthly idea where they were going, what they were doing, and there was secrecy. That's something you don't have today. and not with our government, unfortunately. And we were told that if we divulged any information, we were looking at 10 years in Leavenworth. And so we didn't divulge anything. But it was an APO or FPO, that's all we knew. And but they were good men. We did not lose any that we sent over from our units. They went as advisors, MAG advisors, military assistance group advisors to the Vietnamese and South Vietnamese. But I did not run into any adverse effects or whatever toward the military. That came later, and it always hurt me that it did happen. I was ashamed of the people that had such a poor regard for people that worked hard to make this country safe. And I feel very harshly towards them.
Yes, sir.
I won't go to a Jane Fonda movie. We were not issued, I worked in personnel, we were not issued weapons. We had several units on post that were shipped to Florida to line the beaches. They knew they weren't going to go into Cuba, but they were going to protect anything coming ashore or from anything coming ashore. We wanted to go somewhere. We were gung-ho. We were going to put a bayonet on the carriage of our typewriters, but we didn't have to go, and it's probably a good thing. But it was very interesting. It was a traumatic, trying period of time because we just knew something was going to blow. And thank goodness it didn't. Separated after I had a 6-year obligation, 2 years active, 2 years inactive. 2 years active reserve and 2 years inactive. And I pulled my 2 years active, not quite. I got an early out to come to a farm. But anyway, then I had 2 years of active reserve monthly meetings. And then I had 2 years of inactive. So I would not take $1 million for my 2 years service in the military. But I always told people, if I went again, it was going to be 6 brave men that went, because it was going to take at least 5 MPs to get to that. It was very shocking, frightening. I was processing out of my active duty, and I just knew that I was going to be extended. Fortunately, I was not. But that was a frightening time. We watched the news constantly. Everything that came on, we were watching. And it was a scary time for me. The man that I had replaced when I went in to Fort Huachuca, the unit, he had been extended during the Berlin crisis. And so he had a 3-year active duty rather than his 2. He got extended a year. And I just knew that same thing was going to happen to me. But it did. I had already been trained, and didn't know but what they would call me back to active duty, though I hope not. And luckily, I was not called back to active duty. I appreciate those people that served. I really do. And those that avoided, I feel sort of harshly towards them.